All right, kids, I've convinced myself that almost everything done by companies is in service of their business. And this, of course, includes CEOs and other C-suite executives. For instance, I don't know which person in charge at Aldi decided to use this smoke show of an animated avatar at self-checkout lanes, but I'm certain they did it to get me back in the store. And it works. Snatched. It's an Aldi thing, apparently. Please scan an item, select another option, or finish and pay. Yeah, I want her to show me that barcode over and over again on that cart of milk in a cardboard container of all things that nobody's ever bought in the history of ever. What I'm not clear on is why Miss? Snacky Cakes here still has a hair dye job from 2003. And maybe the software is from that era, but once more, that will be a cost-cutting measure for the sake of business. With that said,
okay, it's our family's first time at Buc-ees. We're all so excited. Oh look, they have birds that greet you at the door. All right, there it is, Buc-ees with a gopher.
Today we're going to talk about Buc-ees, the supersized gas station and convenience store that I assumed has an easily legible name and recognizable logo. But I guess if you're not from the South or the Midwest and haven't heard of them, you aren't aware of them. However, you're about to be. Buc-ees is growing and expanding, and there will be one in your area soon. They beat the system with chains and whips. These drinks here, not the cracking kind that you would assume were sold at Buc-ees or are on the Cracker Barrel logo. I mean, come on. They became the system too. Buc-ees is so successful that I'm beginning to think that if the name of your company and the mascot you use are confusing enough for people to look it up on the internet or talk about it on social media, then that's also good for business. And so is rage baiting.
It's on the internet, so it must be true. Check that out. And check this next one out. It even says Gary the Gopher. I don't know what you all are arguing about, but it's on the internet.
I mean, why stop there? Go with Buc-ees to really be on everybody's lips. Anyways, let's look at this really big rest stop that's not a truck stop because 18-wheelers aren't allowed to park there. I mean, Buc-ees hired a multi-time champion barbecuer to train staff to make brisket. And for said staff to do this.
I got fresh chopped brisket on the board! Fresh chopped brisket on the board!
See, Buc-ees could be described as a bigger, better Sheetz. They share the same clientele with Walmart, but can seem to keep those customers tame and clothed and satisfied. And has been called the Disney World of gas stations with a less horny mascot and no rides. Unless this counts, if you know what I mean. What's wrong with me? As you're about to see, it's all about the company you keep. Creators, owners, and operators can get a lot of shit done from the top of a porcelain throne. Too much even.
Beaver follows a simple business model. It's all about the bathrooms.
I've actually had people call me that they wanted our design so they could mimic it in their homes.
That's Arch Beaver Applin III, founder of Buc-ees. We'll kind of focus on him. In 1982, a few years after he graduated from Texas A&M University, Beaver Applin and his business partner, Don Wasick, opened the first Buc-ees in Texas. By the standard they will go on to set, that one is small. It only has 8 gas pumps. There are 120 these days. Obviously, this was the start of something big. And if we ended the story right there, that wouldn't have even been bad for the Beaver, who was and is inspired by working at his grandparents' general store in Louisiana as a child. He didn't set out to set the record for the world's largest convenience store and the world's longest car wash, but he did, according to Buc-ees. The chain remained exclusively in the Lone Star State until expanding in 2018. 55 plus locations in 12 states later, the brand he helped build doesn't even fit in their massive buildings anymore. The Beaver iconography has become so iconic, so influential, that it is often imitated, but never duplicated. If I'm not mistaken, Buc-ees has sent cease and desist letters to so many. They use lawsuits in order to stick it to the man without realizing that they resemble him, like Drake. And I don't blame them, but the thing about that is...
Brusha, 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 here's the new iPan with a brand new flavor. It's dandy for your teeth.
Buc-ees and the Beaver got their swag from Buc-ee Beaver of Ipana toothpaste. They acknowledge it, which is also where Arch got his nickname. Yet, What the convenience store is possibly most known for is their bathrooms. Floor to vaulted ceiling tile, well lit, with around 70 to 80 combined urinals and stalls, including red and green lights on the ceiling in order to indicate which are occupied and which are free, to help you get to your secluded and private space just in case you want to spend alone time with your favorite online avatar. These toilets are maintained by a dedicated cleaning staff, and in 2012, the New Braunfels, Texas location won the Centos Award for Best Restroom in America. We invite everyone to stop in to try out our award-winning restroom, said Beaver Applin. Maybe Buc-ee's will be our city's new claim to fame. The Taj Mahal of Texas, a tourist attraction in and of itself. And bathrooms aren't the only reason why people sing Buc-ee's praises. Oh, and Buc-ee's definitely has apple pies. And Keitandra music playing in the background, evidently. In addition to fresh hot food, cold sandwiches, fruit cups, wraps, salads, protein packs, and other cold items. There's also a jerky bar, homemade fudge, and barbecue sandwiches, featuring that brisket station, which is intentionally, strategically, in the middle of the floor so that you have to walk by in order to get to the restrooms, no matter which entrance you use. It's not just the milkshakes that bring all the boys to the yard. It's the inexpensive gas that's lower than industry standards, which led to competitors suing them. And clever billboards that encourage people to fuel themselves. Or like this one, which says, you can hold it, 171 miles to Buc-ee's. And this one under a Taco Bell sign that says, potty like a rock star. But then there's one that says slay under a billboard for Center Target Firearms and Range. And that's a questionable way to go about wanting to protect 2A. Might be in bad taste. Now, I'm not saying that Arch Applin is at fault for this, or whether it was intentional, let alone that this billboard is even real. But, well, subscribers and regular viewers know where this inevitably goes with me, especially if you've seen my episodes about Raising Cane's and Crumble. I got to looking into Beaver's political ideology and party affiliation, which also means that somebody, somewhere, is going to leave this comment for me.
Don't get political. We're not here to say you shouldn't have your beliefs or stand proudly for them, but can't we just agree that Buc-ee's is the Switzerland of gas stations? We just come for the barbecue.
In 1996, Beaver Applin ran for Texas House, the state rep in District 25, as a Republican. He finished third and narrowly missed the runoff by 10 votes. In 2014, Republican State Senator Dan Patrick revealed that both Arch Applin and Don Wasik endorsed him for lieutenant governor. Democrat Joaquin Castro tweeted that he wouldn't be getting gas from Buc-ee's anymore, and others claimed that they would boycott the Beaver. Meanwhile, the company said Buc-ee's would hope that the political positions of its employees and others working within the organization would have no impact on where its customers choose to purchase their Beaver nuggets and gasoline. And that's a weird way to say that they don't want consequences for their convictions. According to Transparency USA, as of a few years ago, Applin has donated to 20 Republican political action committees, including Attorney General Ken Paxton, now Lieutenant Governor Patrick, and Governor Greg Abbott, among others. Applin has given the most to Abbott in the amount of just over $1 million, with money that we've given him in exchange for stuff like this.
Nothing beats a Jet2 holiday. And right now...
And for all that Arch Applin III has done to meticulously build and hold and maintain the brand, suing every mom and pop shop, similar to his grandparents, that dares to have a cartoon animal in the center of an encircled logo with a yellow background, he's okay with associating himself and his success with a politician who put circular stalls in between floating buoys that were used as barriers between America and Mexico. Mexican authorities said that bodies were found in the Rio Grande. In Texas, under Abbott, pregnancy became far more dangerous after the state banned abortion in 2021, according to ProPublica. They found that the rate of sepsis shot up more than 50% for women hospitalized when they lost their pregnancies in the second trimester. As the maternal mortality rate dropped nationally, it rose significantly in Texas. And hey, white people, Governor Abbott vetoed Senate Bill 474, a bipartisan effort which was known as the Safe Outdoor Dogs Act. This act looked to make it illegal to chain up dogs and leave them without drinkable water, adequate shade, or shelter. The bill also called for a ban on tethering dogs with heavy chains, but, quote, Texas is no place for this kind of micromanaging and over-criminalization. Are we for real right now? Do they not have reflections in Texas? This is not what they meant by Hot Wheels leading the way. In August of 2021, Abbott appointed Applin to the new Electric Reliability Council of the Texas Board Selection Committee, which makes recommendations on appointments to ERCOT's board. Beaver had served on the Texas Parks and Wildlife Commission since November 2018. I think he left both or one of those posts not too long ago. Look, I'm not saying that Beaver or anyone like him are paying for the sake of having these deadly and destructive policies. I am saying he's providing a blank check that we're paying for, literally and figuratively. CEOs who donate to political action committees are essentially putting their coins into political machines, knowing full well that they'll ultimately get it back. It's like the carts at Aldi. Recently, there was a rumor online that Arch donated $1 million to U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement. Buc-ee's general counsel Jeff Nadalo said that was false. Generally, companies and individuals cannot donate money to federal agencies like ICE. But hey, last summer, after the deadly 4th of July flood in the Texas Hill Country, leave it to Beaver.
Come on down. What's your name, sir?
Beaver.
Beaver. I love it. Just like your logo. We love it. What do you got for these fine folks?
We have a nice contribution for the community foundation here for all the victims.
That looks like a lot of zeros.
That is a lot of zeros.
It's $1 million.
Yes, sir.
$1 million, Austin.
Thank you.
That's
so much.
unbelievable.
There's $1 million. I'll give him credit. Al Roker told Applin that gift was the largest single donation ever made in the Lend a Hand segment's 23-year history. And with Applin being a conservative, he does buck the trend of not paying employees a living wage. Well,
when we look at Buc-ee's on Indeed, it has a 2.7 overall rating. Now, I would consider a 3 and above pretty average. 3.5, I guess, is what I'm going to consider average. When you start dipping below a 3.5 rating on Indeed, then you're a little bit less than average. Under 3, my opinion, that's one of the worst companies to work for.
Former employees aren't happy with Buc-ee's for one reason or another, whether in pretense or in truth. Among all the think pieces you'll see on social media about this place, there are disgruntled ex-employees, along with the Better Business Bureau recently giving Buc-ee's an F rating based on a failure to respond to nearly 90 complaints filed against them. The BBB's website says many recent complaints cite overpriced items, various product issues, poor or rude customer service, and the inability to return certain items. I don't think there's a phone number to be able to contact them on their website. And I don't think any of their fans care.
I definitely would rate them an A.
You would think if Buc-ee's is getting an F, then, who knows about other gas stations out there.
I'm still going every single time I pass by.
About a month ago, the family and I went to Buc-ee's in Huber Heights, Ohio, not too long after its grand opening. Just before we got there, wifey asked if the joint was MAGA. I told her I'd look into it, and we agreed that just in case, we weren't going to get any merchandise that's Buc-ee branded. Don't want to be a billboard for some BS. When we got there, the place was packed, the staff was nice, the food was delicious, but it took us 25 minutes just to get out of the parking lot. On our way home, we noticed that there was even a line to get to Buc-ee's from the exit off the freeway. Traffic was backed up. We're supposed to be getting another one here in the Buckeye State. Mansfield, you're up next. That is if you want to be.
One of the biggest and most intense controversies that Buc-ee's has gotten itself into is the ongoing conflict between the franchise and an entire small town in Colorado. Buc-ee's has a beef with a full town. The small and peaceful town of Palmer Lake, which has a population of 2,500 people, was on track to have a Buc-ee's store built along the interstate, right? A large portion of the town was excited about how much the store could benefit the small town, as Buc-ee's tends to be incredibly financially lucrative and also provide tons of jobs. It's a win-win, right? But others were staunchly opposed to this proposal, claiming it would bring all sorts of traffic and chaos, as well as light pollution that would damage their clear, dark skies, which is, a big part. It's like what makes the town beautiful, right? Essentially, it would bring chaos to a quaint mountain town. This tight-knit community was now cursing each other out during flooded town meetings and going on furious rants on social media. Friends and families were no longer on speaking terms, and people were plastering signs denouncing the Beaver all over town.
Before I go, Arch Applin and his business partner, Don Wasik, don't have to answer to investors or a board. They're independent. They're running the show. And you may be wondering why I've mentioned Wasik several times without showing his picture, and for good reason. He would much rather remain behind the scenes and avoid cameras. However, his name has been in the news. And speaking of cameras,
the son of the founder of popular truck stop Buc-ees is facing a new charge in Travis County. According to a new arrest affidavit, 29-year-old Mitchell Wasik is now charged with felony child pornography possession. Investigators say the new charge is tied to a search warrant from September 2023. At that time, investigators say they found a camera with inappropriate sexual content of a 7-year-old girl. Wasik was already charged with invasive recording.
I have no idea of what Don Wasik or his son's political ideologies are, so I'm not making their faults about conservatism, although I could based on paper trails and history and evidence. But this is the company they keep, Buc-ees as a business and GOP politicians. This episode was not a statement about boycotting Buc-ees. I mean, give it a shot. Get the classic brisket sandwich and the chopped brisket sandwich. And while you're doing so, know that they have a cult following who will gladly, willingly, repeatedly fund dangerous and destructive and deadly policies. Decide if you want to be one of them. I want to bring awareness. And if you're going to, for example, get beaver nuggets, just know that you can get them elsewhere under a different brand name because they have the same supplier and vendors as others. We as a society have decided that voting with our dollar is not a top priority, and we will allow our money to be used to do some unjust stuff. And you know what? I'm no different. If I find out that Buc-ees has self-checkout and they use the same software as Aldi, I will be back to get that snack, but we're gonna be all right.